as a lifelong doctor, if there was one thing you could change, if there was one institution, policy, practice, thing that you've seen in the industry over your career that you would change, what would it be?
I would dismantle the whole vaccine apparatus. I think for several reasons. I think that they're destroying the health of our children and our country. Do you know what it's like for a family to have an autistic kid who's nonverbal? Their entire lives are altered from that moment forth. I have patients who have vaccine-injured autistic kids who are totally dependent on them, even as adults. They know their kids will never leave the house. They need to be home all the time. Caring for someone like that is so destructive to not only the child's lives, the parents' lives, and there's many, many of them out there. That's just one little snippet of the vaccines. And number two, like I said, they're unnecessary. They're built on myths. And the illnesses that are exploding, like this chronic disease epidemic that Bobby talks about, a lot of us talk about, yeah, there's other causes, right? Our food is getting polluted, our food additives, agriculture, pesticides, but vaccine's a huge one. And I know the data. Unvaccinated children are far, far healthier than others. And then, so what would someone scream at me when I say that? They were like, oh, you want a child to die from measles? I'm like, are you kidding me? You know how many kids die from measles? It's extremely rare. They'll tell me if we get rid of the vaccines, it'll come back. Not true. That's not what drove all the measles epidemics in the past. That's number one. Number two, we have really good antivirals. I know of a few more, which you can talk about later on, that I've discovered, but we have ways to treat those illnesses that you just don't need the vaccines. And I just think in terms of health, I am so angry for having been lied to for so long. The books that they write about vaccines are just false. They're false. And remember, the entire legislation in 1985 came about because the vaccine manufacturers threatened to stop manufacturing vaccines. Why? Because, and it's in the act in 1995, because they were deemed unavoidably unsafe. And they could not be liable anymore for all the injuries they were causing. So what happens is Congress gives them immunity. And what do? With that immunity, they explode our schedule, and they're jabbing every kid, and they're weaponizing. They're using legal mandates. You know, kids can't go to school in a lot of states and communities without getting fully vaccinated. And you know how many patients I have, family, like parents, come to me to save their children. And in some states, if they come to me, I tell them, here are your options: homeschool or move. Not everyone's got the disposable cash to do those two things. They're working all day. They can't just decide to homeschool. And but many of them are brought to that decision point because they don't want their kids to get vaccinated. And so I got to tell you, I think that whole vaccine myth needs to be taken down slowly or quickly or somehow. But people need to educate themselves on that. And I include all of the doctors. And I would offer two books. One is Dissolving Illusions by Kathleen Humphreys. And the other one is a masterpiece of an academic work called Turtles All the Way Down, written by 5 anonymous Israeli scientists. And they so expertly go through the entire evidence base for vaccines. And it's a devastating conclusion that we've been lied to around vaccines for so long.